What's up guys? Today we're gonna make a yeast starter the easy way. So let's check it out. So before we get started, let's pour ourselves a beer. There's nothing better than having a beer than when you're making one, right? Alright, so we have the Whiskey Thief from Highwater Brewing. It is a smoked Scotch-style ale with heather blossoms. Remember, I got this from Corey's Fine Wine in Henderson, so let's check it out. I jingle. That's good. That's really good, actually. I thought it was going to be a little too malty, but it's smooth. The CO2 is coming through, so it's a little tingle in the tongue. It tastes really good. All right, so let's make that yeast starter. All right, so today we're gonna make a yeast starter using what I consider to be the easiest way to do this. Essentially, we're using Northern Brewer's canned wort to make a yeast starter. If you've ever made a yeast starter in the past, basically, you take DME, dry malt extract, and make a sort of a starter beer. So you add water, boil it. You can do it in the Erlenmyer glass. Essentially, these things are made so that you can put them under intense temperature changes. So most people will just boil it right in the glass, but you risk boilovers for one thing, especially as it starts to fill the glass, and that can be annoying, especially when you're dealing with malt because it's so sugary and sticky. It's kind of a pain. It takes time. You have to cool it. It's just not the most fun part of brewing a beer, is when you're making a yeast starter from, I guess, scratch. Now, it is a little bit cheaper because you can buy more dry malt extract and use it over time. Don't really recommend that either because it'll sit out, and you run into some issues with that. But if you use one of these canned wort, and by the way, I'm not being paid for this or asked to do this. This is just my personal opinion, but it just makes life so much simpler. We're just gonna do 1 liter for the starter because we're just doing 5 gallons. And so essentially all we do is pitch this and 16 ounces of water, so just fill up the can with some water, put it in the glass, add the yeast, and let it go for 24 hours. So all you need for a yeast starter is oxygen, wort, and yeast. Now the problem, or now what you might be thinking is, how do you add oxygen? And that's where the stir plate comes into play. It's essentially gonna swirl the yeast over, over and over and over again, pull in that oxygen, and the yeast loves oxygen. First time I made a beer, I was so careful not to get oxygen in my wort at the beginning, which sounds super silly right now, but at the time I was so worried about mixing in oxygen. I'm actually surprised the beer came out well, because you want to give it oxygen. Input is oxygen, output is CO2 for yeast. So at the very beginning, we want tons of oxygen. After you brewed your beer and it's finished fermenting, you don't want oxygen at all. But at the very beginning, you want tons of oxygen. So a stir plate is going to help enhance that. So now we also have a cover for the Erlenmyer glass. Basically, this allows oxygen in, but keeps other things out. So this has basically is a filter. We have some sanitizer. I keep some around in a spray bottle. my scissors to open my pag, and of course the wort, and then of course the beer to enjoy while doing this. That is really good. I've already sanitized everything. I at least do it for 5 minutes. I've seen other people on other channels or in the real world just kind of give it a spray and then just go for it. But I like to leave about 5 minutes to make sure everything is sanitized. So let's go ahead and let's get to it. Okay, so now we have our yeast starter going. We have put 16 ounces of water, fast pitch, covered it. Remember, everything's been sanitized. Didn't feel like filming that, maybe I should have, but essentially just sprayed a bunch of this on, keep things sanitized. It was there for 5 minutes. We have our stir plate. Now I like using the Maelstrom from Northern Brewer because I can set a time and a speed and pause it. It's got some cool features on it, but it can be a little pricey. So any other stir plate that you find out there is gonna work just as well. It's basically just a magnet that spins another magnet in the glass to get oxygen in. I have a couple of other stir plates in the description below that you can use that are perfectly fine, way more affordable. But this is the one I like to use personally. Beer break. Also, just to let you know, everything was left in room temperature, so get to room temperature. Wanted everything to start waking up, especially the yeast. This is the Omega Yeast West Coast Ale 2. It's gonna be a little fruitier. It likes a cool temperature. We keep things pretty decent here. We don't go too cold. So 60 to 72 degrees Fahrenheit is where it's recommended at, but sticking to that, you don't really need to worry too much as well. I've had beers and yeast starters ferment at slightly higher temperatures just because there was no way to control it further, and it's turned out fine. So it's very simple. You turn it on, put your glass there. You'll hear the magnet click. That was really quick. So the magnet's on there. Let's turn it on nice and slow. And it's gonna start off really slow. There we go. So you're gonna get this good rotation. You'll get the vortex in the center. Basically, it's just getting oxygen in there. You can already see it starting to foam up a little bit. And you can slowly start turning it up. Now, what this does is it causes the yeast to start to feed off the wort and replicate and grow. So basically, if you were to pour in 1 packet of this and you had a very hot, heavy beer that needed a high ABV and you needed good yeast growth, if you were to just dump this straight into the wort, it wouldn't have time to grow, it might not be healthy, you would underpitch. And if you underpitch, the problem there is that you're just not gonna meet that ABV that you want. So this, equivalently, after 24 hours, is gonna basically double the yeast amount. Of course, I'm making generalizations. I don't know exactly how much, but we'll see when it's done after 24 hours just how much growth has happened because of this. So instead of buying 2 packets, I can just use 1 packet, which is great. So let's go in for a zoom shot. There you have it. We'll leave it for 24 hours. We'll see the yeast grow and we'll check it out for the beer. All right, so it's been 24 hours and we have the yeast starter. It's cloudy, it's good. And we're gonna use this for our beer today. So there you go. That's how you make a easy yeast starter using Northern Brewer's Fast Pitch Canned. I don't even know if it is Northern Brewer or you can buy it from Northern Brewer. Their Fast Pitch can. Everything looks good. It's been going for 24 hours. We're gonna pitch this. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like, comment if you want, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell for more notifications on videos, and I'll be putting out more content soon. Thanks for joining. Have a good one.